Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. One of the things that has been a struggle for me recently, and I'm sure for a lot of us, has been to practice being content. Now, let me start by saying that when I'm talking about contentment, I mean a peace sort of within myself, not just being content with the circumstances and everything that's going on all around us, more of like a contentment with the soul. There are plenty of things going on, outside in the world that I'm not content with, and I feel like that's okay, right? Like we're not always going to be super happy with the situations and everything that's going on around us. And we definitely don't want to be complacent, especially when it comes to things like injustice and, when bad things are happening. You don't want to just be content with all of that. We want to acknowledge that and do what we can to fight against it. But even with the chaos and everything going on in the world around us with the pandemic and the national emergency and everything going on like that, I feel like it's still important to try to practice a contentment within ourselves, to try to find some peace that goes on in our soul. I usually like to keep myself busy with a bunch of things to do, like everybody else. I like to go see shows, I like to go to movies, I like to take my kids to the zoo. I like to be able to run to the store every couple of days instead of making a list that's 2 miles long and having to, stock up in one big trip like we're all doing now. And I want to acknowledge that I know I'm incredibly fortunate and I'm glad to stay at home and do my part, and I think it's important that we all do that. And I know how important that is for our country and our state right now. So I'm happy to do that, and I'm in an extremely fortunate situation to be here with my family and to be safe and healthy. But that doesn't mean that it's ideal, right? I mean, it is getting difficult for all of us, and I mean, especially for you students who just found out that you don't get to go back to school at all this spring. We know it's for the right reasons and it's the right call to make considering the circumstances, but it's still kind of a crummy situation, and it's totally cool. It's like okay to be upset about that. And I'm not saying that you should just be happy with the circumstances, but I do, however, think it's important at some point to accept it for what it is so that we can try to move forward in the situation where we are and, find some contentment within ourselves. We don't want to allow ourselves to just sort of wallow in that perpetual disappointment, right? Feeling disappointed about something, perfectly fine, but sitting in that disappointment for forever is not healthy for us mentally or emotionally or spiritually. So how do we find a sense of contentment in the midst of everything that's going on around us? I want to read to you a passage from Philippians chapter 4. This is verses 10 through 13. We read the first part of Philippians chapter 4 on Sunday for our worship service, if you saw that, or you can go back and watch the stream of it on Riverside's YouTube page. But this Philippians 4, the whole book of Philippians, was written by Paul. And verses 10 through 13 say, I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last your renewal for your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So Paul says that he knows the secret for being content in all circumstances, and the secret is to rely on the strength of God, to rely on that Holy Spirit that dwells within us. This might be something that's impossible for us to do in our own strength, but thankfully we have a God who is big enough to handle anything. And God certainly didn't cause this pandemic by any means. And we can pray and pray and pray for it to be over, and we can't control the circumstances or when things will go back or change, if they ever do go back to exactly the way they were. We don't even know. And there's so much unknown and uncertainty out there. But God can always change our hearts. And if we allow him to, his peace will enter our souls and allow us to experience that contentment. And it's something that we have to practice. We have to work on it. It's not just something that occurs out of nowhere. Maybe if you're lucky sometimes, but contentment really is something that you kind of have to strive toward a lot of times. And we can lift up to God all of our angers and our frustrations and our disappointments. And it's okay to feel those things, but then allow God to help you carry them. allow His peace to enter you. Allow yourself to be content in the circumstances that we've been given. And we know that a lot of doors are closed to us right now, but there are also doors opened that haven't been opened for us before, and new doors are opening all the time. So instead of just sitting in front of the closed door and feeling sad that it's closed, you can get up and try to, walk through one of the other ones and see what's out there, see what kind of new things we can try, new hobbies, spend the time that we've been given doing something you might not have been able to do otherwise. You could read a book, you could pray, always pray. You can reach out to a friend you haven't talked to in forever that maybe you wouldn't have even seen at school if you were there. And just allow God's peace to enter your hearts and to wash over you. So that's my prayer for you today. I pray that you are able to find peace and to practice contentment, to be content where you are. And I guess that's it for today. I hope this finds you well. Much love and God bless.